Russia's war in Ukraine is entering its second year soon. There is talk of a possible major Russian push to mark the anniversary. What is your take on that? Is there a major escalation to be expected?
And you're right, we are moving closer to the sober anniversary of 1 year of Russia's brutal war against Ukraine. And I want to just begin by reminding all of us that the reason we are in this situation is because of a decision that President Putin made to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine last February 24. And we and our allies and partners have stood together for the past year to support Ukraine and help ensure that Ukraine can maintain its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. And I would just call on Vladimir Putin to end this war, because he is the one person who can do that. But as you note, what we are seeing Russia do is prepare to launch another offensive. Some believe it's already begun. We heard NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg say that he believes they are already beginning that offensive. And you have seen, and you saw it again yesterday at the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, the United States and about 50 countries come together and say what additional security assistance they are going to provide to Ukraine to help ensure that Ukraine will be in the strongest possible position to push back that Russian offensive and ultimately push Russia out of Ukraine. So we remain very committed to Ukraine. And as President Biden has said, we will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Indeed, the US and its allies have stepped up their military aid for Ukraine. Do you see this trend continuing in the second year of the war? Or will the US, its allies, push for a diplomatic solution, or both?
Just to reiterate, President Biden has said the United States will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. So there is not a time limit on that support. And we are helping Ukraine defend itself in support of the principles that are in the UN Charter: a respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Might does not make right. Fundamentally, this is about the world we live in, a rules-based world order. That's what we are defending in Ukraine. So there's not a deadline on that support. And my boss, Secretary Blinken, often says, if Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends. So we will continue to stand with Ukraine. To your question about a peace settlement, President Zelensky has been very eloquent in talking about wanting a just and sustainable peace. And as you know, he put a peace plan on the table late last year. And what he means by just and sustainable is it's not a just peace if Russia takes over parts of sovereign Ukraine territory. That's not justice. And sustainable means that the end of the war cannot leave Russia in a position where it can simply rest and refit and then reinvade Ukraine. So that idea of a just and sustainable peace is a vision that very much unites Ukraine and the United States. Thanks.
The US-Moldova strategic dialogue has an important dimension related to security, and Moldova has revealed on February 13 what it calls a Russian plan to overthrow Moldova's authorities with the help of pro-Russian forces inside the country. So how big is the danger in your analysis, especially because this comes at a time when Moldova is replacing its pro-Western government with another pro-Western government?
Well, we have been deeply concerned about the reports of that Russian plot. And I think we are, all of us, all too familiar with Russia's playbook. We've seen what Russia has done in many places, including Moldova, including Ukraine, including Georgia. The list could continue. So we have been in very close contact with our Moldovan partners during what is a critical time, and we strongly support the leadership of Moldovan President Maia Sandu. And we will continue to coordinate very closely. You noted the strategic dialogue that we have with Moldova, which we have found a very productive and constructive conversation. You noted the change in government right now, and we are very supportive of the new government coming in and the renewed commitment to reform as well. So we will continue to be there with Moldova at a very critical time.
The US-Moldova strategic dialogue also includes requirements for Moldova to strengthen the rule of law, good governance, and fight against corruption. How is Moldova faring on that front in a time of multiple crises in the region?
I think you're right in pointing to the challenges of this moment. You know, Moldova is in a vulnerable geographic position. They have a big war going on next door. You have the challenge of Transnistria. So you have these real challenges, and you have a government led by Maia Sandu that is deeply committed to a reform agenda and wanting to continue on the path of creating a stronger democracy in Moldova. And so I appreciate the challenge of this moment, but I do not for 1 minute doubt the commitment of President Sandu to that reform path. And what I will say is the United States is committed to helping Moldova in every way we can, not only with the immediate challenges of energy and economic pressures, but also with the reforms that she is trying to put in place. So we will be there on both of those fronts, trying to do our very best to ensure that Moldova comes out stronger.
Following several incidents in which Russian missiles overflew Moldova, and there were also rockets falling on the Moldovan territory, President Sandu asked Western partners to deliver to Moldova air defense systems. Are United States discussing such a possibility with Moldova?
No, it's a great question, and it probably is better directed to my colleagues at the Department of Defense. But I do know that we have a wide-ranging conversation with our Moldovan partners about political, economic, security, and humanitarian assistance, and that is ongoing.